Hello and welcome to another episode of Team Blush. Today, of course, as you can see by the title of the video, we are going to be installing this Street Faction bash bar to the front of the S13 with a lot of work upcoming for this vehicle and a lot of work getting done for the channel in the future. We wanted to mitigate an issue that we've been having over the last couple years that we've owned this car. That issue that we have been having is that while we have been jacking up the vehicle and putting it on jack stands while needing to do work on this vehicle, we have been completely destroying the frame rails. It's super unfortunate. If you have been around the S13 chassis for a while, then you will understand that the frame rails on these cars are very fragile, and if you are new to these vehicles, you need to understand that the frame rails on these vehicles are very fragile. As you can see in the video, while our frame rails are still in relatively good condition, we still wanted to get this Street Faction bash bar with the jack point so that we can mitigate jacking up on those frame rails. Unfortunately, from factory, Nissan really didn't give us a great option for jacking up the front of these vehicles. Ideally, Nissan wanted the vehicle jacked up via the cross member between the wheels and right behind the engine, but unfortunately with the KA24E, the single cam engine, it has a front sump oil pan, and when attempting to jack the car up via that front cross member, you will come into contact with that front oil sump. So this bash bar is going to give us a very much needed jack point in the front of the vehicle so that we can mitigate a lot of damage that we have been doing. We do not want those frame rails to begin rusting, and I know seeing those frame rails may have been a heartbreak. Trust me, breaks are hard as well, but we are dealing with the issue with this installation, and we will be going and treating those frame rails in the future to make sure that it doesn't rust and that it doesn't further destroy the car. So with that explanation of the issue that we've been having out of the way and how this bash bar is going to tie into it, let's get to it. We've been sitting on this for about a week and we've been super excited to get it on. This should be a relatively short episode. This is a bolt-on application, and all we have to do is take the bumper off of the front of the vehicle along with the OEM crash bar. So we'll see you there and we'll let you know how to get it done. Alright, so having given a little bit of a look to how this front bumper is secured, I've gotten a good idea on how we need to go about taking this off. First thing, we'll start with the easiest. These four bolts, these two bolts right here, and these two bolts right here need to come off. So we'll go ahead and get those off really quick. With the top of the bumper now unsecured and unfastened, we can go down into the inside of the bumper, and as you can see down here, there are 4 Phillips heads fasteners, if you can see it right there, and then there's another one hiding behind this wire right there. We need to go ahead and undo those. And I'm sorry about the lighting conditions. I'm working on getting some upgraded lighting in the future, but we're working with this at the moment, so at least you can still see what I am talking about. So let's go ahead and get those out. So as with the lighting in this video, which again I do apologize about, it's very hard to deal with. I also apologize for some of the angles that might occur in this video, especially this one right here. This is a bit of a hassle to get, but I hope you definitely understand kind of where these fasteners are and can get them out yourself. So we've gotten that unfastened, and if we just wiggle that out, it should just pop out like that. Go ahead and get these 3 other ones out. And actually, I think I found that it's easier to use a stubby screwdriver and come in from the bottom while undoing these fasteners. So, yes, that's much easier. All right, there we go. We got these 4 fasteners out, and be careful, these are plastic threaded fasteners. So if you're pushing down on these hard enough while trying to untighten them, they'll just keep sinking down into this little plastic retainer. So try not to put too much pressure on it, and then once it reaches a certain point, these little clips at the bottom here won't hold on anymore, and you can just squeeze it together and just pop the whole thing out. So a little bit of a pain, but they're out, so we can move on to the next step. Before moving to the next step that we are personally going to do, wanted to take into account a step that I will not be able to show you. On the bottom side of your bumper, where you can see these holes, you'll have a splash guard that connects the bottom of the bumper to various parts of the underside of the bracing of the frame right here. So be sure to take that into account when doing your own if you are using this as a tutorial. There should only be 4 little fasteners on the bottom side of this bumper, but we did want to mention it because we no longer have the splash guard. It was just too chewed up on our vehicle and we got rid of it. But if you still have that, you will need to take that off before moving to this next step. So disregarding the splash guard that we just mentioned, our next step is going to be coming down to these turn signal lights and taking these out. There will be 2 Phillips head screwdrivers, so get them out, pull it out, and then undo the wires that are connected. Okay, well, sorry about that little cut there. One of the screws on our turn signal housings was just not coming out, so we kind of had to get in here with a flathead screwdriver and just kind of push it a little bit so that the little retainer back here would actually bite into the threads of this screw. So now we should be able to just pop that out. Well, be careful because it seems like the wires for this bulb back here are really short, so we just pulled that straight out, and I guess, yeah, this just popped right out. So hopefully that will go a little bit more smooth on the other side because we still have to do it on the driver's side of the vehicle. So let's go ahead and get that done for the camera. Maybe it'll be a little bit more smooth, like I said. Okay, well, on this driver's side turn signal housing, the screws came out perfectly fine. The whole housing came out. and then it was connected by this plug right here that plugs into right here in the housing of the turn signal. That was quite a bit of a pain to get off. We just took some pliers and compressed this little tab right here to pop that out. And we noticed while taking this out that there is no plug on the passenger side turn signal. So we're not sure whether or not that's going to be the case on your vehicle if you are using this as a tutorial. But we did want to take that into note. As you can see, this is the driver's side. This had this plug. This is the passenger side. It did not have a plug. So what can you do? On to the next step. Now that we've gone ahead and gotten the top side of the bumper unfastened, the bottom side on the inside, and if you have that splash guard, the bottom side as well, these two turn signals unfastened, we can now move to the last area that these bumpers are connected, and that is in this area right here where the fender meets the bumper. There are some hidden bolts behind here, and to get to those, we need to take off the fasteners on the inside of the wheel well here. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to do that to get to the fasteners on the back side of this fender. So with the wheel turned to the left to give us some more room to kind of move around in here when getting to the back side of these fasteners, let's go ahead and take our attention to get these, what would normally be 3 fasteners off, but we are missing ours right here. I'm going to go ahead and get these 2 fasteners off. On the very inside of the fender well here, you can see this fastener here. So we're going to get a stubby screwdriver and get that out. After getting that fastener off, we'll move right next to it and get this little plug out. Just use a flathead screwdriver on that. Underneath this lip right here, there are a few more fasteners, so we'll go ahead and get those out. So with those 2 fasteners out underneath the bottom edge of the fender, we can go ahead and come back around, and there should be a fastener right here, but there's not on my vehicle. There should be a fastener here, but it is not on my vehicle. So we'll go ahead and get these 3 out next. And then I believe there will be a few more underneath the bottom side over here. So I'm going to go ahead and get these 3 out. And yes, we were correct. There is one more fastener right here underneath the rear of the fender. We unfortunately can't get this angle very well just because it's so low to the ground and our tripod will not allow that. So we'll simply show you us taking it out. Simple enough, right there. And now this entire inner wheel well should come out. So we'll show you us taking that off. Okay, double checking, making sure that all the fasteners were out before we pulled this. We did find one more hidden back here behind these 2 bolts, I guess. So, I mean, we can't even get the camera back there to see it, but there's a little fastener right there. We're gonna go ahead and get that off. All right, with all of those fasteners out, said, should be able to pull this wheel well out. Alright, I apologize for the jump in the footage right there, but the phone died while we were trying to fish this liner out from the fender, and we had found one more fastener. So this liner was just tucked up underneath the edge of this fender and underneath the front and back. Simply just kind of push that off and it will drop down like it is now. Then you can pull it out from the fender just like so. These two tabs right here on the back side of the fender are where we had those fasteners that were holding on that we could not find. So keep that in mind. We didn't show those getting taken out, but they were there. With that wheel well liner out, we now have access to the hidden bolts on the back side of the front fender. But before we get to those, we are going to go over to the driver's side wheel well and get that liner out for the camera. And we'll try and get that in one cut for you so you can see just kind of where all the fasteners are in relation to each other instead of jump cutting around like we just did. So we'll go over there and we will see you in just a second. Alright, so first things first, on the driver's side wheel well liner, we're going to go ahead and get the fasteners that are on the radius of the fender right here. Alright, for the fasteners on the radius of the fender, there should have been 8, but because we were missing one, we only have 7. So if you have all of your fasteners on the radius of the fender, you will have 8 fasteners. Now, with the fasteners out of the fender, there's still going to be one underneath right here. So we can feel that out with our hand and pop that out. There we are. As for the front, right under here, there will be 2 fasteners. And there are those 2 fasteners. I dropped one. There we go. There's those 2 fasteners. For the next set of fasteners that we will be doing, come to the inside of that liner, and you can see right here, there is one fastener. If you follow it up, you'll see right there, there is another fastener. Follow that up even more. You can see right there is another fastener. Continue along, fastener right there, and a weirdly different fastener right there. This car has obviously been worked on in the past, I'm beginning to find out, so it's kind of hard to keep track of which fasteners I am trying to show off. But as you can see, the second set of fasteners that we do need to be taking off are going to be on this inner edge of the liner. And then, as was on the other wheel liner, you can see these 2 plugs here. These are different from the other side, but these are the 2 tabs that will be holding the last of the inner wheel liner on once we get those out. So we'll go ahead and get those inner liner fasteners out. We'll pull those 2 plugs, and then we will drop this wheel well liner down off of the fender. Off camera, we went ahead and got these fasteners out from that inner liner. Just, these things are such a huge pain to deal with. It took forever, and it would have taken up way too much time in the video. So I showed you where they are. The threads on these things are plastic, and this plastic piece that it threads into just likes to spin while you're trying to take it out. Maybe there's a technique to it, but yeah, you'll definitely have to deal with that if you are dealing with doing this bash bar installation yourself. We got those out of the way, and our last two things to get done are to take those out. Of course, one more unexpected fastener later, right here next to the tow hook on the front of the vehicle. So we'll go ahead, get that off, and then we should finally be able to pull the wheel well liner off of the car. Now, with all of those clips out of the way, we should be able to simply shimmy this wheel well liner out from the fender. There we go. Goodness, that was an ordeal. Now, with the wheel well liners off, like we said, we can come back behind the front fender to get access to the bolts that are hidden to take off the front bumper. As you can see, two of those bolts are right here and right here. Then if we pan the camera up, you can see just barely back here, there is this bolt here and this bolt up here. Take these four bolts off and you should have access to getting the front bumper off of the vehicle. So give us just a second. We're going to get these done on this side and then onto the driver's side of the vehicle, and then we'll show you as we pull the front bumper off. Alright, well, with those last 8 fasteners taken off of the fenders, 4 on each side, we should be ready to take the front bumper off. This is going to be the first time we will have done this on this vehicle, so let's see what happens. Alright, well, it seems like we've missed a step somewhere. It feels like there's still something holding on to the middle section of the bumper. So we'll be right back with you in just a second. We're going to take a look, see if we can't tell what is going on. Okay, so we really quickly figured out what was going on. I guess these brackets right here underneath the bottom of the front bumper, I guess that's what's holding them on. It definitely feels like that is an attachment point. Thought that this had something to do with like a license plate or something, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead, take these 4 bolts out. There's one right here, one right here, one right here, and one right here. So we're gonna go ahead, get those out, and then we will attempt to take the bumper off once more. Alright, let's give this another attempt. After having taken off those brackets, I believe that should have been the last thing holding this bumper onto, yes, to the front of the car. So I guess it looks like we still have the foam from factory for the OEM crash bar. Alright, that tape just came off super easy. Oops, something fell off. Just a clip. And this is the factory crash bar. And looking at it, It looks to be in really good condition. We haven't really dove into the front of this vehicle before, so it's nice to see that there's no hidden damage. So next up for the agenda is we need to take the bolts out to get this off of the car. Okay, now with the front of the vehicle off, filming is a lot easier. So holding on this OEM crash bar, there are 4 bolts. On the driver's side here, there are 2. So there is a nut right here and a bolt on the back side. And right behind it over here, there is another nut with a bolt on the back side, we believe. Either that or that is a stud. So we're going to go ahead and get this one off, and then we'll work on that one. Okay, off camera, we went ahead and hit this with some lubricating fluid, just because, as you can see on this bolt, this is super rusted. This one back here wasn't as bad, but they were definitely both giving me trouble. So we went ahead off camera, broke those loose, and now they are spinning. We'll get these off and then move to the other side of the vehicle and get those 2 off. We'll see you in just a second. Okay, with those 4 bolts off, this should just slip right off of the front of the car. Make sure to be careful when pulling it off. We had some of those wires catching on this bracket, so don't mess up your turn signal wiring and you should be good. Wow, this thing is relatively heavy, so I'm going to see how it's going to compare to our new Street Faction bash bar, and we'll bring that over here in just a second. Okay, so here is our Street Faction bash bar ready to bolt on. Pretty much exactly how the OEM crash bar came off. There are some slots in the brackets on each side of the bar, and then there are 2 holes where the 2 bolts lay in the OEM crash bar. So we'll go ahead, we'll get on the passenger side of the vehicle and show you how that slots in and how those bolts are installed to install our bash bar. Alright, so like we said, this little slot right here in the Street Faction bash bar is going to slot onto this stud right here, and this hole right here is going to go in line with this hole right here. So go ahead and get this on. It might be best to have a buddy help you with this, but right now we are seemingly doing it well enough without anyone's help. It should just slide over the frame rails, just like so. There we go. And then with that slotted onto that stud, can go ahead and pick it up so that it is in line with that hole. Get that bolt installed finger tight. Get your nut right here and install it finger tight onto the stud back here. So Now that we've gotten these finger tight, we're going to go over to the driver's side. We're going to run that bolt in. We're going to finger tighten that nut over there, and then we'll go ahead and tighten them down for good. And there we go. That is the Street Faction bash bar bolted onto the front of the S13. Actually, a really easy process. We did have a little bit of damage on this side of the car we found, and there's a little bit of massaging to be done to get it in place. But even with that, it looks great. It fits perfect. We tested the headlights to make sure that they could flip up and down, because as you can see right here, it kind of does touch the bar, and we were worried about that for a second, but it works perfectly fine. The next step that we are going to be doing is to test fit this front bumper over here. Because of this new jack point that we have on this bash bar, we think we might have to do a little bit of trimming. If we come over here to the front bumper, right in the middle here, you can see this little support section on the bumper, and we think that is going to not clear just a little bit. But it should not be very much, because as you can see, this strategic bend right here in the Street Faction bar, they take into account a lot of front bumpers when dealing with building these bash bars. So if there is going to be trimming, it's probably going to be just a very small amount. But with that said, let's go ahead, get the front bumper, and see how much trimming that is actually going to be. All right, let's go ahead and try to get this front bumper on. Again, don't think that this is going to go on without some trimming, but let's hope that I am wrong. Yeah, no, so exactly as I thought. Show you what we're looking at. As you can see down there, the jack point is coming into contact with that middle support section. So we are going to need to trim that up a little bit. Honestly, not sure how much to trim it. We are probably just going to send it on this one. In the future, we will be moving from this pig nose bumper to a shark nose when we can find a good price on a shark nose, and whenever we can find the associated brackets and fender accessories for it. So we're not too terribly committed to keeping this bumper. So yeah, we'll see. We'll look at it and we'll get back with you in just a little bit on how we're going to go about trimming this up. Okay, so here we are with our super accurate little template for where to cut this little bit of the bumper support. We just kind of eyeballed it. We want to keep as much of the support as we possibly can, so we didn't want to completely cut through it. We kind of want to hide the bash bar behind it, give it that OEM Plus look. So we're going to cut this out on both sides, then we'll go ahead and try to refit the bumper and see if we need to trim it anymore. Okay, it has been a hot minute since we started trimming this bumper, and it has been a bit of a jump in footage for you because last you seen we were cutting out a little notch on the front bumper, And now things have gotten a bit out of hand, and this is the point that we're at. Right now, it doesn't look too terribly clean. We're just taking it from here on the bench and bringing it to the car just to see how far we've had to trim this back. And we are at the point where, unfortunately, it looks like we are going to be losing this support in the middle. Just wanted to inform you, if you are looking at getting a Street Faction bash bar and you are on the pig nose front end, I know a lot of people have switched to the later model shark nose, and in the future we are wanting to move to that as well, like we've said. So we're not too terribly sad or worried about going ahead and trimming this up some more, but now it looks like we're going to be taking this line all the way down to this edge here. We're going to try and keep this back side, because if we completely split both of these sides, it's going to look really bad. So we're just going to try and bring this line down all the way to the edge, come across and meet back up here. And then we'll go ahead and probably get rid of this center support, cutting it from right about here through until it meets the other side. So we're going to go ahead and off camera just figure out how far we're going to need to actually trim this. So once we're done with that off camera, then we'll go ahead and show you how far we actually needed to trim this front bumper to clearance for that front jack point. Until then, we're going to keep doing this as carefully as we can. Luckily, fiberglass piece, this isn't a part of the body, so as ugly as it might look right now, this is still a replaceable part. So, we're going to get to it. We'll see you in just a little bit. Okay, so we have finally trimmed this bumper to the point that we have cleared the bash bar, and we're going to show you how we did that. So, like we said in the last little bit of footage, we did unfortunately have to get rid of that little support piece. But honestly, we're not too terribly unhappy with that, because now we get to see this really cool bash bar, and it's really nice powder coating out from under the bumper. Down here, we just cut this big square. We're not happy with how that turned out. It's a little wonky, but we're going to pull this off here off camera and clean up some stuff before finalizing the bumper installation. As for this top piece, you can see right here, we took 2 pieces of tape and angled them at the point where that support piece met up with the upper bumper. And then we angled the lines of this tape off until it met up with the edge over here. And again, it's not the cleanest cut. We're going to finalize this off camera, but as you can see, that's where we cut to, and it clears the bash bar perfectly fine. So with all of that being done, we're going to go ahead and, again, off camera, we're just going to finalize the bumper installation, and then we're going to go and we're going to test just how well the front of the car jacks up off of this new bash bar. It's the whole reason we got it. We didn't necessarily want to cut up our front bumper, but the front bumper is replaceable and those frame rails are not. So even though we did have to trim a lot more than we wanted, we are inevitably saving our frame rails. So we're gonna go ahead, do all that off camera. We'll see you in just a second, where we will show you how well the car jacks up off of that new bash bar. Okay, and for the finale, everything has been put back together. Everything fits really well with the new bash bar. The only last thing to test, which we admittedly already tested off camera, but for you, the last thing to show off is getting the car jacked up with our Harbor Freight jack. It is super easy. And at full extension, it gives us just enough room to get some jack stands underneath the front frame rails at a height that no accidents are going to happen. It's no longer going to accidentally slip and do any more damage to them. So Sneak that jack stand right up underneath the bash bar, and it's super easy. This is going to be a world of difference in the future episodes of this channel and for the life of this car. Well, I think that about wraps it up for the video. As you can see, our bash bar is working as intended. If you followed along to the end of this video, thanks a ton for joining us. We have a lot more in store for the channel in the future. If you are not already following us on Instagram, go ahead and please follow us there. There is a lot of this stuff that you will get little sneak peeks to before the actual YouTube channel gets to see it, so a little bit of incentive to go over there. If you use this video as a tutorial to install your own bash bar, whether or not it is a Street Faction bash bar or not, we hope it helped. And I think that about wraps it up. So hope to see you in any future episodes on the channel. If you have any questions about how this process went or how we can help you with your own process, feel free to drop a comment. We'll try our best to help you out. Even though this is our first time doing this, we might have a little bit of insight. And until then, take it easy.